Here's a question for you. In really tough times, when everything feels like it's falling apart, why do some societies look for a strong man? Someone who promises order, no matter the cost. Well, today we're going to dig into exactly that by exploring fascism. It's this incredibly powerful and, destructive ideology that really exploded out of the chaos of the 20th century and completely changed the world. We're going to look at where it came from, what it's really all about, and the devastating legacy it left behind.
All right, so here's our game plan. First up, we're going to set the scene and look at this world in total crisis. I mean, it was the perfect breeding ground for some seriously radical ideas. Then, we'll nail down what fascism actually is. After that, we'll see how its leaders took these ideas and put them into, terrifying practice. We'll also see how it stacks up against the democratic ideals it was trying to destroy. And then, finally, we'll get into its lasting impact on the whole world. Okay, so where does something like this even begin? I mean, how does an ideology like this take hold? Well, it all starts in the rubble, really. In the complete and utter chaos Europe was plunged into right after World War I.
And this right here is the key question. Seriously, to really get why fascism was so appealing to some, you kind of have to imagine the sheer desperation of that time. We're talking about societies that were completely shattered. People were just desperate for a strong hand, any strong hand, to lead them out of the mess.
I mean, that whole post-war period, it was a perfect storm. Seriously, you had economies just destroyed, which led to all this social unrest everywhere. At the same time, there was this intense fear of communism spreading out from Russia. And on top of that, you had this deep, deep sense of national humiliation, especially in places like Italy and Germany. And then, bam, the Great Depression hits. These new kind of fragile democracies just couldn't handle it. They collapsed, leaving this huge power vacuum just sitting there, waiting for someone to fill it.
And what's crazy is how fast it all went down. Just look at the timeline. 1919, the war's barely over, and Mussolini starts his party. 3 years later, by 1922, boom, he's in power. Hitler, who's watching all this, tries his own coup in 23. It fails, but just 10 years after that, he has total, absolute control of Germany. This wasn't some slow, gradual thing, it was an explosion. The conditions were just perfect for this kind of radical authoritarian takeover.
Okay, so that's the crisis. But what exactly was the solution these movements were selling?
The name itself tells you a lot. It comes from the Italian word fascio, which means bundle. And this was inspired by this old Roman symbol, the fasces. It was a bunch of rods all bound together around an axe. The message is pretty simple and, honestly, pretty brutal. One single rod, you can snap it easily. But a bundle of them? No way. Bound together as one nation, under one leader, the people become this unbreakable weapon.
And this right here, this gets to the absolute heart of fascist ideology. The nation is everything. The state is everything. The individual? Well, the individual exists for one reason and one reason only: to serve the nation. Your personal dreams, your rights, your freedoms, all of it comes second to the glory of the state.
So when you really boil it all down, these are the core ingredients you're going to find in pretty much every fascist movement. It always starts with ultranationalism. We're talking an extreme, aggressive pride in your country. That energy is then channeled through a single, all-powerful leader. Then you have the glorification of the military, of violence, of constant struggle. And the whole thing is built on rejecting democracy. Because the end goal is always the same: total control over every single part of society.
Okay, so that's the theory. But how did they actually pull it off? How did guys like Mussolini take these ideas from paper and turn them into these all-powerful states?
Well, it wasn't random, that's for sure. It was a step-by-step methodical process of taking freedom apart. Think of it like a playbook. Step 1, you seize power. You use intimidation, you use violence, just like Mussolini's March on Rome. Step 2, you dismantle democracy, shut down the opposition, take over the newspapers and radio. Step 3, you centralize all the power in one person, the leader. And finally, step 4,
You create a police state to crush and terrify anyone who still dares to disagree. And a huge piece of this, a really key weapon, was building up this cult of personality around the leader. I mean, Mussolini wasn't just some prime minister. No, he was Il Duce, the leader. The propaganda machine worked overtime to paint him as this infallible, all-powerful, almost godlike figure who was the living embodiment of the nation's destiny. He could do no wrong. And to build that image, they had to control reality itself. Every newspaper, every radio station, every movie, they all said the same thing. Public spaces were just flooded with powerful nationalistic symbols. They staged these massive, perfectly choreographed rallies to create this image of unstoppable, total unity. And, maybe most importantly, they went after the kids. They created these state-run youth groups to make sure the next generation was indoctrinated from day one with total loyalty to the leader and the state.
So what do you get when you put all of this together? You get a system that is the complete mirror opposite of the democracy it was designed to destroy.
I mean, the contrast is just stark. You can't miss it. Every single pillar of democracy was torn down and replaced with its opposite. Instead of multiple parties, you get one-party rule. Instead of elected leaders, you get a dictator. Instead of protecting your individual rights, you get total state control over your life. And instead of free speech and a free press, you get censorship and non-stop propaganda. It was, quite literally, a total war on the very idea of a free society.
So where does a path like this ultimately lead? What was the final terrible consequence of this ideology for the entire world? The results were, to put it mildly, catastrophic. Looking outward, this aggressive nationalism always leads to war. Italy and Germany teamed up to form the Axis, and their ambitions dragged the entire planet into the deadliest war in human history. But the horror wasn't just external. Internally, it was just as bad, leading to the systematic persecution and, ultimately, the murder of anyone who was labeled an enemy of the state.
Yeah, the verdict of history on this is pretty clear. The legacy of fascism is the complete destruction of freedom. Its authoritarian nature creates this dangerous, unaccountable power. Its aggressive nationalism is a one-way ticket to conflict. And its ideas about social elitism and exclusion, that provides the absolutely chilling justification for persecuting and killing people deemed unworthy. And here's the ultimate irony, right? The very ideology that worshipped war and military conquest was in the end completely destroyed by it. When the Axis powers were defeated in 1945, these major fascist regimes just collapsed. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? What's the enduring lesson? The story of fascism isn't just something in a history book. It's a permanent warning. It shows us that when a society is completely gripped by fear, by crisis, the promise of a strong leader who offers simple solutions, order, and national pride can be incredibly seductive. It's a powerful reminder that democracy isn't guaranteed. It's actually pretty fragile, and it's something that has to be defended, always.